right, welcome back to the Spone Train podcast. I have a very special guest today. We met at do you remember where we met, Matt?
Oh man, I don't.
It was
I know as soon as you say it, I'm going to remember it, but I don't remember.
So we met at that holiday event where Great Southern invited us. We got invited by, we had a common lender. And so we were sitting at lunch, this fundraiser. And,
That's
I thought I was a hot shot because I think I had, a dozen or maybe 24 units back then. And I started talking to you and you're like, yeah, I'm flipping about 18 homes a month. And my jaw kind of dropped and I try not to show it. So since then we've kind of run into each other through different circles, but you are a big time real estate investor. You're doing how many deals, a couple dozen deals a month, and
yeah, tons.
Really built a big portfolio. We'll get into that a little bit more, but I want to introduce you, Matt Larson. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. I was very thrilled to have you invite me. So it was great.
Yeah, well, it's always a pleasure running into you at, whether it's your mastermind event or, these different social events, or even sending you deals, because just being able to pick your brain about some of your philosophies in business. And that's what I wanted to bring to my audience today. So Matt, I wanted to start out by sharing your story, because, hearing your story, I think, is inspirational for a lot of people that have limited beliefs about, am I somebody that can do this? So how did you get started? I guess let's rewind 10, 15 years ago. What was your situation?
Okay. So I got out of high school and, tried to go to college. I went to college for one semester and I loved playing football. So I thought in high school, I would try to play football in college. After one semester, it just wasn't for me. One, I fell out of love with football on the first full pads practice day. College was a little too rough on me. And then also, I just didn't like schoolwork. And after the first semester, they told me I couldn't come back. And so I went back home and, got a job at the local machine shop in Aledo, Illinois, where I grew up. And so I did that until I was 30 years old. And it's kind of an interesting story. So, everybody has different reasons on why they do what they do. And for me, it kind of stemmed from a girl. So, I was 30 years old and I'd been dating this girl for about 4 years. I'm working at a machine shop making not a ton of money. And so the girl I was dating, she calls me up one day and she goes, hey, I want to break up. And I was totally in love. So, it crushed me, broke my heart. And so she says, hey, I want to break up. I want to date somebody with status, somebody that makes money. And I had never thought about making money at that point. Never thought about being an entrepreneur, never thought about having my own business. All I knew was you go to work and you work as many hours as you possibly can. You try to get the biggest raise you can every year by outperforming everybody. And you cash your vacation time in when you need extra money. So I'd never thought about making money. And all of a sudden now it was very, very important to me. I didn't know how money was made. I thought you just made money through, working a lot. And so all of a sudden now I'm looking and I don't really know where to start. I'm stressed out of my mind. I'm heartbroken. And I was up late one night, like maybe a lot of people are. And I was watching TV and, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, an infomercial comes on TV. And I see this infomercial about making money with real estate and no money down, which was great for me because I didn't have any money.
Sure.
And so I bought the book and I got it. And I had never read a self-development. I didn't even know that section of the library existed. I didn't know what self-improvement was. I didn't know self-development. I just never been around anything like it. So I get this book, and because I was so naive, I had never been, I'd never seen anything like it. I just automatically assumed everything in the book was totally true. And when I read it, I'm like, done. I can do this. I have no money, but it's teaching me no money down strategies. And so I read the books and I'm totally in, and I don't have a doubt. I'm so naive. I don't have a doubt in my mind that I can't do it. And so 30 days later, I do my first deal. And with that driving kind of in the back of my mind, I'm just thinking, I got to make money. I got to get this girl back. So I just go full force. I literally, done a few deals, and I was basically, I used a little bit of my money on every deal, doing some rehab on some of them.
Sure.
And so I didn't have any money in savings. So I sold everything I owned. I lived in a 300 square foot apartment. I sold all my furniture. I sold my truck. I sold my four-wheeler. I sold my motorcycle. I sold everything I owned. And then took that money and just put it into the very next deal, into some rehab that I needed to do. And that kind of propelled me through the next 3 years. So 2008, I had 3 years experience. I had 5,000 a month in cash flow. And, the market crashed. It was the worst economy that we'd seen, the U.S. had seen since the Depression, which is the greatest opportunity possible if you're a real estate guy. So I quit my job. I'm now full-time into real estate. Going into 2008, during this time, I had about $20,000 in cash in my bank account. I had $5,000 a month in cash flow. And within 4 or 5 years, I had 450 houses in in my rental portfolio, and well over $1 million in cash liquidity. So it was definitely a good time. I always tell everybody, people get so discouraged when times are hard. And during 2005, 6, 7, that was a tough time to be a real estate investor, because it was very, very difficult to get a good deal, which is why most people overpaid and, ended up paying the price when the market crashed. I was really, really diligent about really learning how to get a good deal so that I could, just make the thing cash flow. People were buying stuff with negative cash flow. That built a foundation for me so that when 2008 hit, I knew how to buy something at a discount. So I leveraged the crap out of my little bit of cash. I did a lot of wholesaling, fix and flip, tons of fix and flip. Even fix and flip, people say you can't do during downturn. I crushed fix and flip during the downturn. And then I started buying all these rental properties. So it really turned out well. It basically propelled me to where I'm at right now. And, really got me to where we're at as well. So now you fast forward. I don't know if you want me to kind of fast forward to today.
Sure. Well, let's go back to some of your like emotional highs and lows in that process, because that's not just like a straight shot up, right? So,
Right.
This girl left you, and actually, I want to applaud her for telling you that she wanted somebody with status, because women are attracted to status, but very few of them will say that, right? So,
Right.
So you're heartbroken there. That's given you some drive. You sell everything. You're burning the boats, and tell me, like, what are you going through emotionally then? Are you like certain, determined? Are you scared? What are you feeling?
So I'll just tell you, there was no doubt in my mind that I was going to do it. In fact, I was like the weirdo guy that would tell everybody, yeah, I'm going to be retired in 3 years. I basically have not even done a deal yet, read the books and said, I'm going to be retired in 3 years. I literally, November 10th, 2005, I did my very first deal, and I told everybody I'd be retired in 3 years, and I left my job November 7th, 2008. So I finished 3 days early. So I was 100% in. I knew I could do it. Was I afraid? Absolutely. Every single day was a new challenge. But luckily, I was so naive that I didn't really know what I didn't know. And so I tell people all the time, like, that being naive sometimes can be a benefit. I didn't know what I was getting into. I mean, I became a landlord. I had no idea how to do any of this stuff. I had to learn as I went. So yes, I was scared. And I remember being frustrated. I knew I had a goal to hit. I had set a timeline and a deadline for that goal. And I worked so hard, and there were weeks and days and months that I came up and I was empty-handed. And, so I remember being very frustrated to the point where, I'm like pounding my steering wheel with my hands because I just wanted to get that next deal done, and my offer didn't get accepted. And so yeah, but I worked a lot of hours. I worked very, very hard, but it didn't bother me. It was like, I was so driven to that goal. Didn't matter if I had to work 20 hours a day. Was no big deal. I fell asleep in my car many, many times. I pull over the side of the road and sleep. Worked nonstop to get to where I'm at now. Now, the cool thing is, if I had to do it all over again, it would never take me that long, right? I mean, I was learning. There's a learning curve, and I had to pay my dues. And so, but yeah, I mean, that's, frustration. Yes, I was scared because I was making offers on properties and I knew I didn't have money. All the things that go along with being successful. It doesn't matter the industry. We all go through the same stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So give us one insight from your perspective on what separates you from those people who have those dreams, who talk about it, and they just turn out to be delusional and nothing happens, right? Like, what's the difference between you creating that massive success?
I think a big reason was I was so into my goals that I was very laser focused on I was hitting my goal no matter what. So I put my goals to the very top of the list and everything else filed in underneath that.
Mm-hmm.
I had a 3x5 card that I wrote down all my goals on a 3x5 card, had it folded in half, had it in my front pocket all the time. If I had a bad day, I'd pull out my 3x5 card and I'd read my goals. I had above my light switch in my bedroom. As soon as I turn on my switch in the morning, get up, can't see, all of a sudden lights come on, there's my goals taped above the light switch. I was just totally into this. I wasn't so goals and hitting what I wanted to achieve first, everything else filtered in. I wasn't watching TV. I didn't have a TV. I sold it. I wasn't listening to the radio. When I was in my car, I was listening to books on CD. Um, and so, I think that's a big reason. People try to go about when most people get into something new, what they do is they go about, hey, let's keep doing what we're already doing, but we'll just throw this other thing on top of that, and it'll all kind of work out. And that's just not possible. I carved out the time every single
Mm-hmm.
day to learn real estate. Every single night after work, I would come home. I always had the same routine. I would come home. I was not spending any money on anything. Everything was being put into real estate. So I bought macaroni and cheese by the case because I could get it a little cheaper. I'd come home from work. I'd make a thing of macaroni and cheese. I'd put on a pot of coffee and I would drink the entire pot. That kept me awake to be able to do my studying and my offers during the week. And then on the weekends, I worked on properties. And I just did the same routine over and over and over again, knowing that I sometimes was very frustrated, but I knew the day was coming that it would be my last day.
Yeah, that's great. That's an amazing story. So, what are some of the beliefs that had transformed? Well, actually, let's go back first. So, I know from talking with you that you are a student, right? You're always studying, you're always reading. So, through all of that studying and reading, what are some of the beliefs that you changed along the way? Like, what were some that you had, and then as you became successful, or in the process, what did you know that you needed to believe in order to accomplish all those goals?
So let me back up for a minute, because when I grew up, I came from a poor family. My dad, it wasn't that many years ago. My dad's like, he told me, he's like, yeah, I've never made more than, I think it was like $17,000 in a year. This was like 10 years ago. He told me this. And I'm like, no, that's not possible. You make more than that. He goes, I fed my family of 5 on $27 a month. And he went and got the IRS form. You know how you get when you're doing your taxes and it shows you how much you've made every single year of your life, that paper you get once a year. He pulled that out and proved it to me. So we grew up very poor. We were on food stamps for a short amount of time. And so his beliefs of money were so lopsided to what it takes to be successful that I had to overcome all that. So when I grew up, we never went on, like, we didn't go to restaurants ever. We didn't do like fancy vacations ever. Like we just didn't have money. I mean, it was normal for us to get our power turned off. It was normal for us to get our phone shut off. So on every Sunday, my dad would pile everybody in the car, and for our entertainment for the week, we would drive around town, Sunday drive. And my mom always wanted to go look at the really nice fancy houses, which were $200 or $200,000 houses. And I remember driving those neighborhoods and looking at these houses, which we lived in houses that, no joke, these things were so bad that we had snakes in our houses. We had the gaps in the windows were so bad that when it snowed, a snowdrift would come inside the house. Like that's how bad the places we lived in. It was like the worst. I got made fun of for the houses I lived in growing up. So we would go by these houses and see these $200,000 houses, which isn't like extravagant, right? But to me, they were the nicest houses on the planet. And I just dreamed of one day being able to afford a house as nice as those. And I'd ask my dad, I'm like, how do those people afford those houses? And he always gave me the same answer. He said, they inherited the money. It was always the answer. So I grew up not knowing you could make money. My dad always said, hey, always never buy a house, always rent, because if something breaks, somebody else has to fix it. Or he'd say, you're never going to live to pay off a house. You're never going to live to pay off a car. Always protect your credit, because without credit, you're buying nothing. So I thought I had my dad on a pedestal, and I don't want to take away the fact that my dad's an amazing dude, and he's taught me a lot about work ethic. And, I wouldn't be here where I'm at today if I wouldn't have been taught some of the principles that I built the foundation of. But he did not teach me anything about money. And in fact, I retired my parents on Father's Day in 2012, and took over all their bills. I give them a monthly check, just provide everything that they have in life as comes out of my pocket, which it was one of my goals of once I became wealthy. So, but he didn't teach me anything about money. So I had a lot to overcome. And I remember reading books about money, and I just couldn't believe I just couldn't believe it. I just didn't understand it. And it took hundreds of books to change my subconscious, hundreds. And so books were a very, very big part of this whole process. And if you think you can read one book and you're good to go, you're wrong. I had anger problems, just like my dad. I had I would be, if somebody looked at me wrong, I was in their face. If somebody said the wrong thing to me, I was in their face. If somebody said the right thing to me, the wrong tone, I was in their face. It was just a normal, everyday part of my life. I was total, just an angry person. And this breakup only made it worse. And so I literally fixed it. Self-help books fixed that problem for me. But it was a lot to overcome. And without personal development, never would have happened.
Yeah. So what are a few of the money books that changed your life?
Well, I think everybody's read, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I read Millionaire Mind. That was a big one for me. And there's just so many, even books on budgeting. Like I read Rich on Any Income. I remember reading that one, and it was like, wow, that's pretty good. And I didn't know about budgeting. I had never heard of people budgeting money. My parents never had to worry about that. They didn't have anything, So now going back, I could, you could become a millionaire on any income that you want. It just depends on how you spend that money. But, oh man, I just have to really sit down and write them out. I have Rubbermaid totes in a garage in the Quad Cities, just stacked full of all the books that I used to buy, all paperback. I like the paperback books personally, but just, who knows? I could probably go back through them. I can't name them off the top of my head, but I know Rich Dad, Poor Dad played a very impactful part, and that whole series, I've read them all. They're all really good. So.
And there's nothing like super technical in those, right? It's just a little belief system, little belief shifts, investing in assets instead of liabilities, and those little things that can be so impactful, right?
Yeah. Richest Man in Babylon too. That was a good one. I've read a dozen times, just teaching you like the principles of money are not, it isn't a secret. It really isn't. Like it's very, very basic math. The people that try to get rich by, flipping a house, thinking that's going to do it, or, getting in the stock market and doing the right things there. It doesn't fix the underlying issue. You know what I mean? More money doesn't necessarily mean it's a better situation. It could be for short term.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I know plenty of people who make a lot of money and still have none of it at the end of the month, right?
Right.
So you had an opportunity to do some work with Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi, right? We had a weekend with Tony. Why don't you share a little bit about that experience and how that came about?
So, it's funny. I've done 4,000 plus real estate deals in my 14 plus years. And this has probably been about 4 years ago. Tony was writing a book, and I'd read a couple of his books. I knew I'd never been to one of his events, but he was writing a book, and he was irritated because some of his critics were saying, "Hey, Tony, you're really good at pumping people up, but after you get them excited, they go home, they're back to what they were doing." So he was irritated that he didn't have an outlet for them. He wanted to give them something to do and build a business around, and he liked the concept of real estate. And he wanted it to be a simple concept of single family home that nobody could have an excuse why they couldn't do it. So he started asking around, and one thing led to another, to another person. And eventually Dean Graziosi got the call like, "Hey, Tony Robbins wants to learn single family homes." Well, here's the thing is, at that time, it's probably, like I said, probably been 4 years ago. I had been creating all of Dean's real estate education for probably 6 years. And so, Dean had transitioned more into personal development, and I was the real estate guy. So anytime he wanted to, sell a real estate product, he'd say, "Hey, Matt, what are you working on that's really cool?" I'd build it, and that's would be our product. So, he calls me up and he says, "You're not going to believe this." He goes, "Tony Robbins wants us to teach him real estate." And so Dean's like, "Hey man, you know real estate better than I do at this point. You've been doing it, more deals, and I'm more personal development. So you're going to be the one that teaches him." And I'm like, "I'm in." Like, I'm afraid, I'm scared,
Yeah.
but let's do it. So we fly out to Las Vegas. Tony rents this. I don't even think you can rent the rooms that he had. We were at the Wynn Hotel in Las Vegas, and he had one of the celebrity rooms that you don't rent. Like, you show up, they give you this. I mean, this was the most amazing, biggest hotel rooms, nicest thing I've ever seen. And I walk in, and Tony, he doesn't, he travels with a entourage, right? He's got 3 personal assistants. He's got a bodyguard. He's got a chef, his chiropractor. I mean, it's just crazy. So, I was thinking I was going to go into this room and teach him one-on-one. In reality, there's 10 people in here. So I sit down and I teach Tony for 3 days in a row, everything that it takes to do a single family real estate deal with wholesaling, fix and flip, and rental properties. And Tony was a total student. I mean, the dude was like, you want to talk total immersion. Like, there would be times that he doesn't stop to eat. So I'm starving at this point. I'm not as well trained as Tony is. So I'm hungry. I have to go to the bathroom. Doesn't matter. You keep going. So I'm teaching for 3 days straight. I can't wait to get done at the end of the day so I can get some food and hit the bathroom. And so, I don't believe for 3 days while I was in front of him, I ever went to the bathroom once. That's how nuts it is. So anyway, he did finally let me eat some like lettuce and stuff one day, which was kind of nice, So anyway, so he's a total student. The dude's amazing. And I always say, hey, if Tony took an IQ test, he'd be genius. I mean, I don't know if he's ever done it or not, but I mean, the dude is unbelievable with his memory. So at the end of the 3 days, he goes, "Matt, I'm gonna just make sure I understand everything you've been teaching me for 3 days." And he never touched his phone. He didn't take a phone call. He didn't take a text message. 3 days, it's just boom, 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 boom. So he's like, I'm gonna tell you everything I learned. And he went up to the whiteboard, and for the next hour, he summarized every single piece, and he did not miss a beat. It was unbelievable. I'd never taught anybody that could do that. And so it was amazing. And it was pretty neat to see Tony become a student. And so the cool thing is too, after that, obviously I get to add that to my quote unquote resume. But one of the cool things after, Tony's like, "Hey, you want to come to one of my events?" He goes, "You sit right up front." And so he's like, "I'm going to put you in the best spots." So I go to a UPW like 4, 5, 6 months later, and his team walks me right past all the celebrities. I'm sitting in the best seat, the first row. I got Maria Menounos behind me, Melissa Etheridge, the guy what's the guy that made the reality show, The Survivor. I'm like, he's behind me, and everybody's looking around like, "Man, who's this dude?" So, but it was amazing to experience. Here's a cool little side note. So I get Tony's top bodyguard's cell phone number. We start talking, and 6 months later, 3 months later, I don't really remember the timeline, but he texts me. He goes, "Matt, I just did my first real estate deal." I'm like, "What'd you do?" He goes, "I flipped a house, made 50 grand." And he learned from just watching, being in the room. He learned how to do real estate.
Oh,
It
nice.
was pretty
Wow.
cool. So anyway, yeah, it was an experience of a lifetime, and something I'll never forget.
So you get that opportunity all the time to have people come back to you and say, "Hey, I just did my first wholesale. I just did my first flip." And that's got to be the most rewarding thing that you do now. Tell us a little bit about what your students go out and do.
Yeah, so I've always been the guy. So it's really, really difficult to be. It's one of the reasons why so few gurus are actually keep doing, like, if you get it doesn't matter if it's real estate or stocks, probably anything. The guy that's teaching and the guy that the guru, the expert, a lot of times is no longer doing
Mhm.
the real estate anymore, because it takes a lot of time and effort to create an education company. Like, it's a full-time gig. It's crazy. So the cool thing is I was able to be able to do both, right? I used to go on the road and teach for Dean for years until like 2012 or 13, and then recently I started doing more coaching as well. And so it feels really good when I was kind of known for a few years there. I was kind of known as the guy that uh, did like the trainer of champions. Like, I created so many people I taught that had never done a deal, all of a sudden skyrocketed and became like superstars, and they're on stages speaking, and it was pretty neat to watch. So it makes you feel amazing when you take a guy or gal that's never done it, and next thing you know, they're crushing it. They're working, they're doing full time. They left their job, they're full time real estate, and now they're teaching other people. So yeah, it's an amazing feeling. You've changed the course of that. I mean, you didn't do it. I mean, all you did was provide the
Mhm.
education. They have to still provide all the rocket fuel and the work behind it, but um, it's an amazing feeling. It's like you change that person's family.
Yeah. So if there was a distinction between those that come train with you and they go out and have massive success, and those that train with you and they just don't get there, what is the difference? What's that little mindset shift that they're missing? Is there a pattern that you see in those people?
A lot of it still comes back down to dedication. I really see the same traits over and over again. One is I always say there's two types of people. There's results oriented people, and there's time and effort people. And the people that just think, if I put in enough time and I give it enough effort, I'm going to be successful. And there's a big difference in that versus somebody that's just results oriented. Like, let me give you an example. Let's say, for example, when I was younger, and we grew up on a farm. My dad actually I didn't know he taught me this one success principle that really changed my life. But he taught me this principle without really ever saying, "Hey, son, I want you to sit down. This is really
Mhm.
important." He never said that. But what he did was, I'll give you an example. One day, I have an older brother. He's a year older than me. And we lived on a farm, and I worked for free 40, 50, 60 hours a week from the time I was 6 years old until I was a junior in high school. Never got paid once. We were just expected to work to have food and a crappy place to live. So uh, one day he has us putting this fence up out on the farm. And we were using the tractor, and you push the fence post in, you drive the tractor, we get to the next one, you put this fence up. And the tractor broke down that day. We're like a third of the way done with the fence, and the tractor breaks down. And dad, we go back to our dad and just said, I was probably in junior high at this time. And we go back to dad and we're like, "Hey, the tractor broke down." And he goes, "Listen, guys, here's the deal. Your I don't care. The tractor's a tool. I don't care if the tractor works or not. You're not coming inside to eat dinner until the fence is done. You either find another way, use a hammer. I don't care, but you're not coming inside to eat until the fence is put up." That's a results oriented mindset. That is the opposite of a time and effort. The average person maybe would have said, well, boys, you did hard, you tried hard, and you put in your time and you worked hard and it just didn't work out. That's the difference, is just you're getting the job done no matter what. Doesn't matter what the process is. You're not stuck in the process, you're stuck in the result.
And that's great insights. And I think that changes the way that you approach problems and setbacks, right? So anytime, you know, in the real estate business, we're always bumping up against something unexpected. A tenant sets a house on fire, or, you know, there's cockroaches, whatever the tenants are doing. But there's always some kind of setbacks. And I think the way that you approach that in your head is different from the results versus the time and effort, right?
100%. And so I see a lot of people, you know, I remember training people, and one student would say, hey, this and this happened to me, but I worked it out. I had a problem in front of me, but I worked it out. I got the deal done. Another student would be like, Matt, real estate just doesn't work. I'm like, well, what's the problem? Well, man, I got my business cards, and I've built, I've talked to realtors, and I've looked at listings, and I've done the math, but it just doesn't work. I'm not getting any deals done. And I'm like, well, how many offers have you made? Well, I haven't made any. See, that's just like, people get so hung up in the wrong effort, but they fooled themselves into thinking that they're working really hard.
Well, I think one of the common misconceptions about real estate is that it's easy, and not that it's difficult, but it's not so cookie cutter, right? Like, I remember when I started, like, I bought keys to foreclosure properties, and I was like pushing windows open and jumping in to take pictures, to wholesale them or buy them. And, like, you got to figure out a way to make it happen. It's not just there's a deal on the MLS and you make an offer and you get a good deal, right? It doesn't work like that.
Right. 100%.
I don't know if you did anything like that. I shouldn't admit that on.
No, I would never do anything like that.
Yeah, that's right. You just have me go out and I'll find you the properties, right?
No, seriously. I had the same set of like special keys and everything, man. Yeah, like, of course, I'm not getting in my car driving across town to get to a house and then not getting in. That's not happening.
Right.
I'm not wasting my time.
Yeah. So it's just like having that determination and just finding a way to get the deal done no matter what. And that applies to everything, not just real estate, right?
Everything. It doesn't matter. Like, you could go into a company and the guy doing the accounting could be doing the same exact thing. The receptionist, where it doesn't matter what it is. Either you're results oriented or you're stuck in the process. That's those two things are so 180, but that's how people think. I'll never forget when I got my first job in the machine shop. I had never really worked for anybody else. I just worked for my dad. And other than the farmers and stuff, and but I get my first real corporate, a job for working for a factory. So I go in there and they're like, hey, you're going to be a parts washer. And in this parts washer, you just dump parts in the one side, it goes through and it comes out and they're clean. That was my first job in the machine shop when I was 19 years old. And I'll never forget the guy that trains me how to put the parts in the machine and take the parts out. He points to the stack of parts and it's to the ceiling. And it's like this. He goes, see that pile right there? He goes, that's 2 months worth of work. So I don't know I just know to work hard. I don't know about like 2 months worth. I don't care about the time. I just want to get the job done. So by the end of the week, I had the whole thing completely done. And this guy walks up to me and he's so mad at me. And he's like, you just made me look bad. And I go home and the guy yelled at me. I go home, I talk to my dad. I'm like, I don't understand what I did wrong. I worked really hard all week and they're mad at me because I got all this work done. He goes, son, that's the world. You've been sheltered from the real world. And now you're going to see how other people think. And that's it was a big lesson. It was just kind of funny because there's so many people out there that are just time and effort.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's just those little paradigm shifts, right? So Matt, I saw you posted on Facebook a while ago, and I don't know if this is a true story or not, but there was a story about a Lamborghini and being on a date.
Yeah, it's true story. That actually happened.
I want to hear this story.
So I bought a Lamborghini. Let's see, probably, I don't know. It's been a while, 7-8 years ago. And it was the coolest thing on the planet. I always drove the crappy cars in high school. I mean, just literally pieces of crap. And so I had made enough money. I paid cash for a Lamborghini. And so I moved from the Quad Cities to Arizona, and I'm making just a ton of money. I'm driving nice cars, and my lifestyle is totally different than it was, when I was growing up. So, but and my mindset had shifted, but it was funny because I was still maybe talking to the wrong people still in some social circumstances. So anyway, I meet this girl, and I go on this date, and during this date, she tells me, she goes, she was, your first date, you're just learning about each other. And this gal was a teacher, and we sat down for dinner. We're in a place that's very, very expensive. And she's like, after high school, I went to this college, and then I got my master's degree, and then I got this. And she was like, the degrees defined her. Like, this is where I'm at now. She's a teacher at an elementary school teacher, and not making a ton of money. And you know what, I'm not, has nothing to do with like, teachers in general. Teachers are amazing people. I still am in contact with a teacher I had in elementary school, and some of those people really helped me.
Mhm.
So it's not a ding on teachers at all, but she happened to be a teacher, and she wasn't making a lot of money, but she was very, very, very well educated. And I went to college for one semester and didn't drop out. They made me quit because my GPA was too low. And I was telling her that, hey, I appreciate the fact that you tried really hard and you got some degrees, and that's pretty neat that you were able to take your education to that level. But I don't have a degree. That's just not my thing. I don't like school. Now, I read a lot of books and this and that. And she just went off on the fact that, just people that don't have degrees are just careless people that are kind of basically lazy, is what she was getting around to. And I just remember thinking, man, I've done everything. Like, I built a business. I'm making over $1 million a year. I paid cash for a Lamborghini, and I've done all this stuff, and I'm still not good enough. And I just remember thinking, I don't get it. Maybe I'm thinking right. And so I literally we get done. We walk out to valet, and I give him my ticket and pull up my bright orange Lamborghini. And it was just funny because that sometimes that can change things when somebody sees the car you drive.
Yeah.
And I don't actually remember her exact words or anything like that, but I do know that she knew that I had that, and it just changed her. I think it changed. She didn't know walking in. I'm not the type of guy going into a date that I'm going to say, man, I'm rich, I'm this and that, I've got all this money, this is where I live. I just don't talk about that stuff. So she had no idea. And so all of a sudden she sees me, driving an bright orange Lamborghini, and it's kind of like the look on her face is priceless.
Yeah, and her judgment was more about herself than about you, right? And we're always projecting and judging people, and we got to just remember that it's not about us, it's about that person's view of the world.
Yeah, for sure. It
So
was one of those fun moments, though, because I knew eventually at the end of the date that I wouldn't have to brag or say anything, and it was going to happen, right?
yeah, just imagine her jaw just
Yeah.
dropping, right?
Yep.
That's a great story. So I love that story. Because you can do all the things and people still not like you, right?
Oh, in fact, the more you do, the more people won't like you. The more successful you become, um, the more you're going to get knocked down. Really, I mean, people are going to attack you. I always say that, and I don't know where I picked this up from, but everybody wants to see you get by. They just don't want to see you get by them. And it's just one of those things that you know people are willing to give you a helping hand until they find out, or someday you're ahead of them financially maybe or whatever, and now they have resentment. I'll never forget when I was, again, I told you, when I first started real estate, I told everybody. I mean, it didn't matter if I was at the grocery store and I'm checking out, I'm going to start a conversation with the girl that's running the cash register that I'm going to be retired in 3 years. I told everybody. It was awkward and weird, but at the time I was just like, I was so excited. Like, I just couldn't wait to talk to the next person about what I'm getting ready to do. And I wanted to tell them to do the same thing because I had discovered real estate, and like I was so naive. I thought anybody can do it at all times. It doesn't matter, which they can, but people don't realize that. So it didn't matter who it was. And I will never forget, I was at my insurance office and I was talking to the receptionist waiting for my insurance agent to come out. And I told her, I said, yeah, I just got into real estate. I'm going to be retired in 3 years. And so the lady's like, oh yeah, that's cool. You know, good job and whatever. And I'm probably 6 months in at this time. So then she leaves that job and then goes to work in the city for the city as like in the city office where they do the water and they do all this other stuff, the billing and stuff. And I see her like a year later, and she was always so nice to me that I walk into the water department and see them all. And she walks up to me. Now she's on the other side of the counter. She's like, so Matt, you retired yet? And starts laughing, and they're all joking about me and making fun of me. You know, are you retired yet? And I'm like, no, I told you it was going to be 3 years. It's only been a year and a half. And of course I hit my goal, and all of them knew it. And now it's like, but it doesn't matter. That's not changing that person's opinion about you.
Yeah.
They still don't like you. Now they don't like you even more.
Well, you know, what I teach is the underlying principle of that is people like themselves. And so if you make the same amount of money as somebody, in their mind, you're like them. And then if you grow past them, you're not like them anymore. And so like, It's one of the principles of, I guess, the mind, or our lower selves, right? That's how we judge people now. Once you evolve past that, you see that you can celebrate people's differences and stuff. But people that are just getting by, like, they just want people to be like them. They don't feel comfortable when people are different, right?
Yeah. And it's cool because now I get excited when I see people succeed. And it's kind of neat to see somebody that like has no chance, and then they do it for themselves, and they may, you know, like we have, you know, I have this meetup that we do, and I share everything. Like I share the contacts that I'm using. I share the bankers. Like nobody does that stuff because they're like, well, what if he gets a leg up on me? What if he, you know, now I'm competing against him. These guys are the same guys investing in my market. I share everything. Here's my insurance guy. He'll save you money. Here's my banker. He'll give you a loan. Here's, you know, and I just start sharing resources. And people call me up and say, hey, Matt, how would you do this? Well, you do it like that. And people are like, well, aren't you afraid that like maybe you're giving up an advantage? Like, no, I just know that I need to do better. If I have to get up every day and improve myself, if I do that, everything else takes care of itself. Yeah. I'm not worried about somebody else. I mean, in worst case scenario, they're going to make me better. If I help them get good, maybe they'll turn around and help me get better at what I'm doing.
So you mentioned a lot, you know, the abundance mindset. I'm a big fan of The Science of Getting Rich. And he talks about, you know, the competitive mind. And you just don't have that competitive mindset. You have that abundance mindset, and the way you share in those groups, it brings people together. And then, you know, I attend them. And so now when I get deals, I'm like, first person I think of, oh, here, I'll send this to Matt and see if he wants it before I send it to anybody else. And so by adding value to me, I add value to you. And people, they just get so competitive that they forget that that's how the universe works.
It is. And, you know, it's the scarcity will crush you. It really will. It will stunt your growth. And I think a lot of times when you're working in, you know, smaller areas, the small, in my opinion, most of the cases, the smaller the area, the more the scarcity exists. And so it's kind of the fishbowl deal. You know, you get, you know, somebody grows to the size of their environment. And I just see that when I live in all the big cities I've lived in, it's a different conversation. You know, it's pretty wild to see. And I think people see bigger with the more opportunities, and they're more apt to share, you know. Pretty cool.
Yeah, that's great. So Matt, let's start wrapping up. What are some rituals and routines? I know that you're a very disciplined guy. You're always growing. What are some things that you're always doing on a daily or weekly basis to sharpen your mind and your processes?
Well, I'm very big on learning, whether it be a podcast I listen to, whether it be books that I'm reading. I love reading books. Now, I will admit, I don't read as much as I used to, but it would be impossible to read as much as I used to. I used to a couple of books a week. But I love learning. I'm forever learning. If I'm part of a high level mastermind, I spent $90,000 in 2019 on my education, just through masterminds, paying people to mentor me. So I love being able to cut a check for a shortcut. And I do that typically through people that are ahead of me. I find out who they are
Mm-hmm.
and I pay them for their time. And so that's on the education side. The ritual thing, I'm an early riser. I've never been, since I was a little kid, I've never had to sleep a lot. So I typically sleep 5 to 6 hours a night, and I feel good after 5 to 6 hours. So I get up early, typically 4 o'clock. I usually will work or read or something or set up my day. I like to plan my day out. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm in my studio right now, and I'll come up here and write on, the whiteboard what I need to do for the week or for the day. Or sometimes I lay out the whole week in advance. But so I like to plan my day. That's part of my ritual. I know what I'm going to do that day and what I have to get done. And again, it's not time and effort. It's not like, well, it's 5 o'clock, I'm all done. Wait a minute, I got 3 more things to do. I got to get those done. So I'm very big on that. I have a personal trainer. I have a really cool gym at my house. I have a personal trainer come over to my house several times a week to train me. So I like to do that in the morning. And really that's kind of it. I really big on planning your day.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think it gives your mind and your reticular activating system something to tune into as the day goes on, and it's like you set it in stone in your mind, and then it figures out a way to accomplish it, right? And that's what you did with your goals, having that 3-year vision and looking them at above the light switch, and just start to program yourself, right?
Yep, for sure.
So I think many real estate investors forget that aspect, right? I know a lot of them incorporate the personal development stuff as well, but so it was really good to hear some of these paradigm shifting ideas. I know the results versus effort stuff is something that I'm definitely going to be more conscious of in planning my day and in executing as well. So any last thoughts, Matt?
I guess the last thing I'd like to share is I'm very, very, my company, just to kind of give you an example, my company, we flip, 20 plus houses a month. And I only work 5 hours a week in that business, sometimes not even that. And so I'm very, very big on virtual assistance and leveraging other people's time. So the one thing I would say that I'd like to leave with everybody with is don't get caught up in doing. And as long, it is important to have a good work ethic for sure. But the more I grow, the more I progress, the more I discover new levels of income, the better I am at doing less, planning more, being the orchestrator and pushing, different tasks onto other people. So now my day consists a lot of who to do the how.
So we got a little preview of that, of your system for hiring VAs at our last mastermind meetup. So why don't you tell them about the program that you have?
Yeah, so in 2007 I read the book The 4-Hour Work Week. Amazing book. And the book's like 300 pages, or maybe it's more than that. Very thick book. I'm a very slow reader. I read the whole book cover to cover. I can't put it down. But there was a lot of cool stories in the book, and I really liked the whole concept of the 4-Hour Work Week. But the big thing that caught my eye was virtual assistants. And I had never heard of that term. And so, I tried to hire a virtual assistant after reading the book, and it didn't work out. I didn't know why. I just thought maybe I don't know what I'm doing, which was part of it. But some time goes by, and 5 years ago, I got back into virtual assistants and started hiring them again. Now we have 6 full-time virtual assistants that help us. And a few months ago, I'm so into virtual assistants because it's such cheap labor and you get such an amazing result as long as the process is right, that we had built, a very thick process book on how to train virtual assistants to do specific tasks. And so a few months ago, I was like, man, I love learning. I'm just going to try to find, maybe there's something I'm missing with virtual assistants that somebody else has figured out that I can buy their system and plug it into what I'm doing. And I searched and I searched and I searched, and I bought a few books, and it's like crap, always crap. Like you didn't learn anything. Like I'm personality style. Like I like to see some detail when I learn something.
Steps.
I don't need the motivation side. I just give me the detail and I can implement it. And I was like, man, my stuff's better than any of this. Like, a light went off. I'm like, I wonder if I should sell it. So we've put basically all my systems with my virtual assistants in one 230 page big book. And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to put it out for sale. I'm going to throw $500 on it. It's my life's work for the last 5 years, and it's amazing. And I know it's amazing because I bought everybody else's stuff, and everything's crap. And we put it up for sale. I sold $30,000 worth in the first week. And I was like, okay, the feedback I'm getting is this is the greatest thing. So many high level people bought it. And so many people were saying, man, Matt, this is unbelievable, that I was like, maybe we figured something out there. So I kind of built a program with virtual assistants. I'm really big on it. And we drive pretty deep in that level, but I think everybody should, doesn't matter what you're doing, you should have virtual assistants working for you.
I got a couple and they've been great. They help you scale the business and keep a sane mind versus doing all the menial tasks. And even, one thing, and I'm sure you face this as well, is hiring your virtual assistants to take rejection for you, right? Because it takes hundreds of calls to get a deal. And so, if you're going to face that rejection all day, every day, you're going to get burnt out. Why not pay somebody $5 or $6 an hour and let them get rejected all 100%. The time? And then you get the hot leads.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly, like, think about, like, you can, let's say, everybody's got a unique ability, but everybody's also got things they just absolutely dread doing. Mm-hmm. Find out what you dread doing or that you're not good at all, and get a virtual assistant in there and let them do it. I avoid negativity like the plague. Like, if I'm on Facebook and somebody's negative, I unfriend them. Like, I don't care if they're my neighbor. I don't want negativity in my life, and I don't want to talk to a seller that wants to, hang up on me every 5 seconds. And so, yeah, you're right. I haven't talked to that. I haven't done that task in my job or my company for years.
Yeah.
So
it's a system I highly recommend. I've seen the layout of it. So yeah, where can they find that?
If you go to, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook too, but I keep Instagram as more of my business. If you go to find me at Real Estate Matt, you guys can find me there. I have my website's called realestatematt.com, and my products are located in my bio, and everything else on Instagram. You can find them all. They're good stuff.
Yeah, I know you got a bunch of amazing other systems in there as well. So definitely go check that out. Matt, thanks for coming on. I can't wait to see you around town soon. And I just got a deal under contract. I'll send your way. So
awesome.
when we get off here. So good seeing you. Thanks again.
All right. Good seeing you. Thanks.
All right. Bye.